I thought I knew every secret my husband had. I was wrong. The letter I found wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't even supposed to exist. Hidden inside the lining of his old leather jacket was a faded envelope with one sentence written across the front. If Olivia ever finds this, it's already too late. My hands froze. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I knew opening it might destroy everything we had built together. But leaving it sealed felt impossible. My name is Emma, and for 11 years my husband Daniel had been the most dependable man I knew. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Boston, shared a comfortable life, and never kept secrets, or at least that's what I believed. Daniel never gave me a reason to doubt him. Until the morning I decided to clean out the hallway closet and found his old jacket tucked behind a box of Christmas decorations. The envelope was yellow with age, carefully hidden where no one would ever think to look. My fingers trembled as I slid the letter out, and the very first line made the blood drain from my face. I read the first sentence 3 more times, hoping I had misunderstood it. If you're reading this, I failed to protect you. Protect me from what? Daniel was upstairs getting ready for work, humming as if it were just another ordinary Tuesday. My hand shook as I unfolded the second page. The handwriting was unmistakably his. There are people who believe I owe them something. If they ever discover where we are, they'll come for the only person I've ever loved. That's why I never told you the truth. A chill ran through me. This wasn't a love letter. It wasn't an apology for an affair. It sounded like a warning. I quickly folded the pages and slipped them back into the envelope just as Daniel walked into the hallway. He smiled, kissed my forehead, and asked if I wanted coffee. I forced a smile, hiding the letter behind my back. For the first time in our marriage, I looked into my husband's eyes and wondered who he really was. The moment he drove away, I locked every door in the house. Then I spread the letter across the kitchen table and noticed something I had missed before. A small hand-drawn map was hidden in the bottom corner, with one address circled in red. For nearly an hour, I stared at the tiny map drawn in the corner of Daniel's letter. The circled address was less than 40 minutes from our house, tucked away in an industrial district on the edge of Boston. It wasn't a neighborhood I recognized. Every instinct told me to call Daniel and demand answers, but another voice inside me whispered that if the letter was real, he had hidden it for a reason. That I grabbed my keys, slipped the envelope into my purse, and drove to the address. The GPS led me to an abandoned brick warehouse surrounded by rusted chain-link fencing and overgrown weeds. There was no company sign, no parked cars, and no sign of life, except for a single black SUV sitting near the loading dock. My heartbeat stopped. It was Daniel's SUV. I parked half a block away and watched from inside my car. A few minutes later, Daniel stepped out carrying a small metal lockbox. An older man in a gray coat greeted him without a word. They exchanged a firm handshake before disappearing through a side entrance that looked permanently locked from the outside. As I reached for my phone to take a picture, an unknown text message suddenly appeared. "Don't go inside unless you're ready to lose everything." I stared at the text message until the screen went dark. Every sensible part of me wanted to drive away, but curiosity had already won. Keeping my distance, I slipped through a gap in the old fence and moved quietly toward the warehouse. One of the side windows was cracked just enough for me to see inside. Daniel stood in the middle of a dusty room with the older man and a woman in a dark business suit. The metal lockbox rested on a long wooden table. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Daniel unlocked the box and carefully removed a thick stack of papers tied together with a faded blue ribbon. The woman flipped through the documents before placing an old photograph beside them. Even from where I stood, I could see Daniel's expression change. He looked frightened. Not guilty. Suddenly, the older man pointed toward the window. My heart nearly stopped. I ducked behind a rusted steel barrel just before anyone could see me. Footsteps echoed inside the building, growing louder with every second. Then the warehouse door slowly creaked open. A familiar voice called into the silence. "Emma, I know you're out there. Please don't." My legs refused to move. Daniel stepped out of the warehouse alone, his hands raised as if he didn't want to frighten me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt heavier than anything I had ever experienced. Finally, he looked directly into my eyes and said, "Emma, I never wanted you to find that letter." I pulled the envelope from my purse and held it in front of him. "Then explain it," I demanded, my voice shaking. "Who are these people? Why are you hiding documents in an abandoned warehouse? And what are you protecting me from?" Daniel closed his eyes and took a slow breath. "Everything in that letter is true," he admitted quietly. "But it's not the whole story." Before I could ask another question, the woman in the business suit walked outside carrying the old photograph I had seen through the window. Without saying a word, she handed it to me. The picture showed a much younger Daniel standing beside a smiling woman, holding a little girl no older than 5. I looked back at Daniel in complete disbelief. His next word shattered everything I thought I knew. "Emma, Before I ever met you, I had a daughter that I couldn't breathe. The photograph slipped from my fingers and landed on the pavement. Daniel bent down to pick it up, his eyes filled with regret. Her name is Lily, he whispered. I didn't know she existed until 4 years ago. He explained that years before we met, he had briefly dated a woman named Sarah. They lost contact and he never knew she had been pregnant. Everything changed when Sarah was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Just weeks before she died, she contacted Daniel and revealed the truth. She asked him to promise that Lily would never feel abandoned. The money wasn't for another family, Daniel said quietly. It was for Lily's education, medical care, and the trust Sarah created before she passed away. I kept it secret because I was terrified you'd think I had lied to you from the very beginning. Tears filled my eyes as every transfer, every hidden document, and every strange meeting finally started to make sense. Then the older man hurried out of the warehouse, his face pale with panic. He looked straight at Daniel. That she's gone, he said breathlessly. Someone took Lily less than 10 minutes ago. The world around me instantly fell silent. Daniel didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward his SUV, and without thinking I followed. Every question I still had was pushed aside by one terrifying reality. An innocent child was missing. As we sped through the streets, the older man called again. Security cameras had captured a black pickup truck leaving the warehouse just minutes earlier. Daniel gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. They've been trying to force me to hand over Sarah's legal files for months, he admitted. Those papers prove who stole millions from her family years ago. Lily inherited the evidence. And now someone wants it to disappear forever. My stomach dropped. This had never been about money. It was about silence. The GPS led us to an abandoned marina outside the city. The black pickup sat near an old warehouse by the water, its engine still running. Daniel jumped out before the SUV had completely stopped. From inside the building came the faint sound of a little girl crying. I ran after him, my heart pounding. But just as Daniel reached the entrance, the warehouse lights suddenly went out. Then a man's voice echoed through the darkness. Take one more step, and you'll never see Lily alive again. The man's voice echoed through the darkness. Take one more step, and you'll never see Lily alive again. Daniel froze, his hands slowly rising where they could be seen. My pulse thundered in my ears as I searched the shadows, desperate to find where Lily was being held. Then a frightened sob broke the silence. Dad. The sound came from the far corner of the warehouse. Without warning, police sirens exploded outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows, and the kidnappers panicked. One of them tried to drag Lily toward a back exit, but Daniel lunged forward without thinking. The struggle lasted only seconds before officers rushed inside and pulled the men to the ground. Lily ran straight into Daniel's arms, crying uncontrollably. I stood frozen, watching a father refuse to let go of the daughter he had fought so hard to protect. A few weeks later, the investigation exposed a years-old financial conspiracy, and everyone responsible was finally arrested. Daniel had never betrayed me. His only mistake was believing that love could survive without the truth. As we drove home with Lily sitting safely in the back seat, Daniel reached for my hand. Sometimes the letter you fear the most doesn't destroy your family, that it reveals the truth that finally saves it.